Welcome to the Crowds Line College Football Show, featuring Coach Lou Holtz and Mark May. Every week, you can predict the winner, the score, and compete against the crowd for prizes. Sign up on the Crowds Line app or by going to thecrowdsline.com.
Welcome to the Crowds Line College Football Show with Lou Holtz and Mark May. My name's Kevin Trimble. I'm your monitor. Could not be happier to be here for Week 4 college football with our two legends, our two football experts, College Hall of Famer, two-time Super Bowl champion Mark May, and College Football Hall of Famer and National Championship coach Lou Holtz. Gentlemen, it's been an exciting week, but I've got to tell you what's even more exciting about this week is that, yes, we have people going to thecrowdsline.com to compete in our contest. We have people downloading the Crowdsline app. But more importantly, what we did this week in Week 4, we put together the Crowdsline podcast. So all these shows are currently on the Crowdsline College Football Show podcast, and you can download it on the iTunes Store or go to Google Play. So I will tell you, as I told Mark, I did some yard work listening to the podcast. I encourage you and your friends to do the same at home. So with that said, gentlemen, pretty exciting week, but I think what I'm just going to do, I'm going to throw a little chum in the water first and get you two stirred up. First of all, we got some upsets. We got some upsets once again. Another upset, another freshman kicker. This one a little bit more mature. Made some things happen against what we probably now call the angry honey badger, if you really want to think about that. And then more importantly, Arizona State. Look what, come on, Coach. Herm Edwards. Get them ready, get them ready. You know what? You got to keep them ready. We'll see how that goes. Troy University of Troy, Alabama goes out to Lincoln, Nebraska. And I'm going to tell you right now, gentlemen, talk about this. Coach Neil Brown, the product of Danville, Kentucky, Boyle County High School, University of Kentucky, from the Hal Mummy coaching tree. Maybe it's about time he moves up from that $800,000 a year bracket into that next level of coaching. And then we talk about Florida State. Florida State, gentlemen, we've seen Florida State, and it wasn't that Eric Dungy. It was Tommy DeVito. Tommy DeVito took care of business against Florida State for Syracuse. Willie Taggart is 1-2. That's pretty tough. And any other upsets we can think. So, gentlemen, there's some chum. Let's take it. Mark, let's talk about BYU, Wisconsin. What are you thinking?
I thought BYU did a terrific job, particularly going on the road to Camp Randall and beating Wisconsin in their place. They ran the ball effectively, but what really got me was the way that they were able to shut down Wisconsin's offense, holding them to just a few touchdowns in that game, Coach. I thought that was really big. And the way that they hung in the game like that, they also traveled to Arizona for the season opener and beat Arizona at Arizona virtually the same way.
I agree with you completely, Mark. Here, Wisconsin has 10 starters back on offense, great offensive line. Last year, Mr. Taylor rushed for 1,900 yards, 26 carries, a total of 117 yards, whereas you look at Canada on the other side for BYU, only carried the ball 11 times for 110 yards. That was the difference.
Well, Coach, I would also say the big difference was freshman kicker Skylar Southam, who, after high school 2016, went on his LDS mission to Chile, worked up in the mountains in Chile and doing his thing, but then he came back and you know what? He really did his thing. Now, he's a 20-year-old freshman, but they put him out there to go put one a 45-yard field goal in Camp Randall. Think about that. That's pressure, and he came through.
How about talking about Wisconsin's place kicker that missed a 42-yarder and would have sent the game into overtime?
Well, I'm not sure if they went to Chile looking for him. Maybe they should have. Mark, I think he's a dear friend of yours. I'm a huge fan. Herm Edwards, no better coach to get the team up and ready to go. Probably need to get the team constant, smooth, and stay on plane. What do you think, Mark? Big, tough loss there.
Well, that was a tough loss for Arizona State going down the road for the first time of the season. Danny Gonzalez, her defensive coordinator, warned his football team, and I heard his press conference before, guys, get ready for this game. They're going to try to hammer you, just like they did last year when they beat you. They're going to line up with two tights, a fullback, and an H-back. They're going to run the ball down your throat, so you better be ready. Guess what? They weren't ready. San Diego State and Rocky Long's team was well coached in this game, Coach. They rushed it 52 times for 311 yards. Arizona State was the #1 rushing defense in the country going into that football game, and they just got pummeled at the line of scrimmage.
No doubt they got beat severely on the line of scrimmage, but you had to be impressed with the quarterback for Arizona State, Mark. What a great leader, what a great competitor. He threw for over 300 yards, just wasn't enough.
Coach, I'm going to lead off with this one for you first. You got Neil Brown in Troy University, goes out to Nebraska. You know, had a tough one against Boise State, but go out to Lincoln and take care of business in Lincoln. Is Troy Brown one of the most underrated coaches that's out there right now that's ready to go to the next level, Coach?
Well, every week you have a different team. You're a different coach based on the team you have, but wonderful victory for Troy. That's why I thought that they would play so well in their opening game, where I was disappointed against Boise State. Last year, you know, I think that they had a big upset at LSU. The year before, they almost had Clemson. But let's not get down on Nebraska yet. You know, he lost his starting quarterback. The other quarterback transferred. He's playing the third string. I think a walk-on. Had a couple interceptions. And remember, when Scott Frost went to UCF his first year, I think he was something like 3-9, something of that nature. And then he turned the thing completely around. Nebraska fans, you stay with him. He will get the job done.
The worst thing about this, Kevin and Coach, Troy not only comes in the stadium, beats you on the football field, but they walk away with $1 million plus if you're money. If you're a fan of Nebraska, you got to be upset about that.
Well, I think that $1 million will go a long way for the next time they play. They're going to bring the Song of the South, Troy Marching Band. It's a big deal. We're going to hear from them this week and on this show. But I'm telling you, Troy has done it again, upset, and Neil Brown is a big part of that. Now, we could talk real quick about Akron. Terry Bowden beat Northwestern, okay? Well, I think Northwestern, something's holding them back. But let's move on to Tallahassee. That's more important. Go up to Syracuse. We said last week, tough time against Samford's quarterback. So if that's bad, what are they going to do against Syracuse? Eric Dungy has what's called an eye irritation, and Tommy DeVito comes in, leads 2 scoring drives. That game wasn't even close. Mark, talk about Florida State and where's this going?
Well, they're going downhill in a hurry, and when you look at the cover, it was kind of bare and Jimbo Fisher left, particularly on the offensive line and for defensive stars on the defensive side of the ball in the secondary. But the key of this football game is Dino Babers had his team ready to play. I told you last week, Syracuse is going to get somebody in the dome because they usually do. They got Clemson last year. This time around, they got Florida State, and they just pummeled Florida State. The crowd was into it. It was hard to hear. And what they did was smart. They didn't turn the air conditioning on in the dome, so it was about 95 degrees in the dome, and it kind of wore down Florida State. Plus, with that up-tempo offense, Coach, they had no chance, particularly in the second half.
Hey, Mark, it's 95 degrees in Florida all the time where Florida State is. You talk about the cupboard being bare. 5 straight years they've had a top 5 recruiting class under Jumbo Fisher. Now you tell me they don't have any athletes. Let me tell you what this week shows to me. The first couple weeks, you don't know what you have. Maybe Virginia Tech's not as good as we thought because they embarrassed Florida State in the opening game. You think, wow, they must be great. That doesn't mean they're necessarily that good. We thought Northwestern, wow, they beat Purdue. That's great. Purdue is 0-3. Northwestern is 1-2. They've lost to Duke and they've lost to Akron since then. So you can't tell what kind of team you have early in the year. Maybe Notre Dame's a little bit better than we thought because of how impressive they beat Michigan and what Michigan has done since then.
Always comes back to Notre Dame. One thing about the Florida State kids that I watched down the sidelines was their body language. They had terrible body language. They were slumped on the sidelines. It was almost like, get this game over with, get us on the plane and get us back home. They didn't want to play the fourth quarter against Syracuse. That's one thing I kept my eye on those kids from Florida State.
Well, that's a very good observation on that, Mark. And, you know, the other guys having difficulties, Chad Morris at Arkansas. They get beat by North Texas State, I think, 44-10. Now, the one thing you have to remember, Chad Morris and the coach of Florida State have big-time jobs. Both of them have a losing career record.
Good point.
Well, Coach, maybe don't have to win to make a lot of money. That's the way I see it.
No, it doesn't, because you win doesn't mean you make a lot. Most I made was $135,000. They paid Charlie Waits $19 million to leave. Is this
You
a
still
great
won't let
country
that
or
go.
what?
You won't let that go, will you?
I didn't have the right get back, Coach.
Well, Coach, I guess coaching is still a better investment than the lottery, but we'll see. Well, gentlemen, that was a great week. But the games that we picked is, you know, we picked some pretty 4 good games. And Bama at Ole Miss, LSU at Auburn, Ohio State at TCU, Vanderbilt at Notre Dame. And our college football show contest for the last 3 weeks, just so you know. Week 1, Coach up 4-3. Week 2, Coach up 3-1. Week 3, Mark up 2-1. Total, Coach, you're in the lead on the college football show contest 9-5. And then this week, Bama, Ole Miss, Coach, you won with the spread. You were closer. LSU, Auburn, that was a push. I think you both might have picked Auburn. Coach, is that right? Or Do we do
I said on TV last week I could feel just as comfortable going with LSU, but I just felt that Mark really knew what was going on. First time I followed him, it'll be the last time I follow Mark.
Well, Coach, somehow we've misplaced that reshoot we did after school last week. But Ohio State, TCU, Mark, you both picked OSU. Mark, you had that with the spread. That was a lot closer, I think, than people think. And Vandy at Notre Dame, Coach, you picked Notre Dame to win. But first, let's talk about Alabama at Ole Miss. Coach Holtz, you just said, and I wasn't sure if it was tough or great, but I think it was great. You said, down at Ole Miss in Oxford, that's a great place to play. I think Alabama agrees with you, because for about the first 11 seconds, Jordan Ta'amu was the best quarterback on the field. But for the next 59 minutes and 49 seconds, he was about the third best quarterback on the field, because the wheels came off, and they came off quickly. 75-yard touchdown pass on the opening play, hey, that's exciting. But Alabama just kind of turned it and said, no, not here. We're coming to your place. We really like to play here. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts? Mark, can anybody but the Eagles beat Alabama?
I don't think Alabama's going to lose this season. The way that they're playing right now, they're hitting on all cylinders. Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback, and Jalen Hurts both had touchdown passes in this game. They almost scored half 100 on Ole Miss's defense by halftime. It was 49-7. This game was over before it started. After the first drive for Ole Miss, they were out of this football game. They could run the ball. They could throw the ball. They did exactly what they wanted in this game, tough on special teams. And you look the way that they're playing, particularly on defense, I'm really impressed with their defense, because they lost 4 linebackers. Remember, they lost 2 in the spring, and then 2 got hurt in fall camp. So they're down 4 linebackers, and they're still playing top-notch defense, but their offense is a machine, Coach.
Oh, there's no doubt. This is the best Alabama team he's had. He's won, 5 national championships. So, but I think Georgia can give him a shot, and I think A&M, which we'll talk a little bit later, has a chance against him. But let's remember this also. Ole Miss, I think the week before, played Southern Illinois. Southern Illinois had 35 points at halftime. So let's not put the Ole Miss defense in the Hall of Fame yet.
Well, gentlemen, our second game, we're going to call it a press. LSU at Auburn. That was tough guy football down on the plains. You both picked Auburn, so we're pressing on that one. But if you look at the stats, yardage were about the same, except Jarrett Stidham had 2 interceptions. That was the big key. Mark, get your thoughts, and Cole, you can talk about your new favorite person on the Bayou. Talk to us, Mark.
Joe Burrow, the quarterback, was 15 for 34. But what he's doing, he's managing this offense. He's not making mistakes. And particularly when you look at the last drive in the fourth quarter, when they went for it on 4th and 7, they had to get the first down. He got the job done. Ed Orgeron's done a terrific job with his football team, keeping them in games no matter what happens. You look at the first game against Miami, they were dominant in that game. This game, dominant again defensively. Dave Aranda, their defensive coordinator, has done a fantastic job. He's worth every penny they're paying him as the highest paid defensive coach in college football. Their defense is filthy, Coach.
Well, LSU just moved up to number 6 in the country. First of all, to go into Auburn and win, I mean, that's quite an accomplishment in the SEC. And Auburn's a very, very good football team. But the difference between LSU this year and previous years, Mark, they jump out on top 10-0. Here comes Auburn, comes back, takes the lead 14-10. Normally, LSU would fold. Things that start going wrong, then start pressing, then make mistakes. But no, down 14-10 in a hostile environment, they kept their poise. I think you have to give a lot of credit to Burrows. I think you have to give a lot of credit to Ed Orgeron, the coach, head coach at LSU. But that's a different LSU football team. They're outstanding on defense. They don't beat themselves on offense. And they have a great kicker in Cole Tracy. That's the difference, Mark.
Okay, Mark, your look says it all. Mark, I understand Cole Tracy, but you got to admit, Cole Tracy is about the coolest thing in Baton Rouge since Gavin Gray. And I'm going to tell you right now, the way I watch how Coach just loves old Cole Tracy and all these kickers, but more importantly, how that Baton Rouge fan base likes Cole Tracy. Mark, I'm going to get Mark Mosey's phone number. Coach, I'm going to get Dr. Reggie Ho's phone number. I'm going to teach my kids to be kickers, because you know what? It's paying off down there in Louisiana. And
let me set the record straight right now. In order for those kickers to get an attempt at a field goal, what has to happen? The offense has to take the team down the field so they get the opportunity. So the offensive line has to protect the quarterback and block for the running backs and get the ball in position for the kicker to even have an opportunity to kick the field goal.
Hey, Mark, the reason he's kicking a field goal because the offense screwed up. If they hadn't screwed up, he'd be kicking an extra point. He's the eraser trying to erase the mistakes the offensive line made.
Well, gentlemen, next for LSU, Louisiana Tech Bulldogs are coming in. We're going to talk about that later. And Auburn has Arkansas. So, as you know, Arkansas is currently working on punt coverage right now and seeing what a fair catch looks like. But the next game, Ohio State at TCU. Been talking about this for a long time. It was going to be the first real team, the first team that is supposed to compete, the first team that, you know, they have 85 scholarships, but these guys can play some real football that Ohio State was going to go to. In Jerry's World, in Dallas, with head coach Ryan Day manning the sidelines until Urban Meyer comes back full time, which is this week. But this game comes 40-28, and we talk about that. A lot of people say, oh, it was a blowout. Nah, I don't think it was a blowout. Mark, what are your thoughts on that game?
Very close football game, as I thought it would be. If TCU doesn't turn the ball over and make some mistakes on special teams, they win this game. If you look at Darius Anderson, their running back, another running back against this vaunted Ohio State defense goes for over 150 yards against them. And not only that, Gary Anderson has a very young football team, particularly on offense. They had the lead at halftime, 14-13. If they don't come out in the second half and had a bad third quarter, they have a really good chance of winning this football game. Nick Bosa goes out with a groin injury. He won't play this week. But I still think the key of this football game was the way that Gary Patterson played on both sides of the ball. He kept his team in it, kept them focused, and they had a chance to win this game even in the fourth quarter. I thought that was important. That's why the score was so close.
TCU has a lot of talent, Mark. As I said last week, they have 3 4-star quarterbacks. They have 3 4-star running backs. They have speed. They have excellent wide receivers. They play very, very aggressive on defense. I like you, Mark. A little disappointed the way Ohio State's played defense this year. They lost Joey Bosa, the great pass rusher, early in the football game. But the one thing the Ohio State defense did, they scored 2 touchdowns on defense or set it up, and that was the difference in the football game. I think both of them are outstanding football teams, but let's give an awful lot of credit to Haskins, the quarterback at Ohio State. He's for real. I love the way Dobbins and Weber, the 1-2 at running back. That's a hard combination to stop.
Well, Coach, I think Joey Bosa, I think, is also injured with the Chargers, but Nick Bosa, the Buckeyes, he got injured as well. It's a family affair there. Something to note, TCU outrushed Ohio State 203-182. That was very, very, I mean, that's kind of telling. Maybe they're not that great, but they're still both really great teams. Next up, Ohio State. Sorry, Coach.
It was an 87-yard run for a touchdown that TCU had that really turned that completely around.
Well, Coach, they got to keep happening, just like 14 points off turnovers, as you've seen. But next up, Tulane Greenway comes to Ohio State. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And TCU in Texas, down in Austin. And, hey, is Texas back? We're going to find that out. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Our last game of the College Football Show contest was Vanderbilt at Notre Dame. And you two gentlemen, we talked about that. We talked about 1.2 yards a carry. Talked about SAT scores. Talked about who has a new defense, who has an old defense, who can throw, who can't throw. Mark, I want to hear you talk about your thoughts because, Mark, you picked Vandy. Coach, you picked Notre Dame. What do you think, Mark?
Kyle Shermer threw for over 300 yards against this vaulted Notre Dame defense. The Golden Domers are almost crying walking out of the stadium because they knew how close this was, Coach. Notre Dame doesn't jump on them in the first quarter and take a 10-0 lead. Guess what? They get outscored 17-12 the remaining 3 quarters. They were in this game. Brandon Wimbush, again, could not throw the ball effectively. Yes, Notre Dame outrushed them in this football game. But I'll tell you what, Ian Book may be the real deal at the quarterback position for Notre Dame. He may be able to solve their problems. The reason why? 3 for 3 and a touchdown. Why not put him in for more snaps in these games? I know Brandon Wimbush is your guy. He can run the offense and can run the football. But I'll tell you what, this kid looked pretty good in his snaps at the quarterback position.
He's the one that came in and beat LSU in the fourth quarter last year in the bowl game. And Ian Booker, he also has the Lou Holtz locker. You know, we donate a locker, but I pulled for him a little bit. But let's remember this, Bart. I said last week the difference between Notre Dame this year and last year, what was keeping them from being a great football team was their inability to run the football. They were like 107th in rushing. They rushed for over 240 yards against a good Vanderbilt defense. You can talk about not throwing this guy, that guy. Notre Dame is 3-0. That's all that really matters. 22-17. You know, one thing about Notre Dame defense, they might give up some yards. They don't give up a lot of points.
Well, that was a great game. We'll see how that's going to go because Notre Dame is headed down to Wake Forest in Winston-Salem, and Vandy is hosting South Carolina. So we're going to see where that goes. Well, gentlemen, that was our College Football Show contest, and those 4 games. We're going to have another College Football Show contest later on, but let's go through our Rapid 5 from last week. We had the big 5 games that we had. we talked about USF and Illinois. Boise State, Oklahoma State, Boston College at Wake Forest, Washington, Utah, and Hawaii at Army. And gentlemen, I'm going to start with USF at Illinois in Soldier Field, the monsters of the Midway, Ditka, and all these things. But more importantly, where was Butkus? Where was Red Grange? They weren't there for Illinois. I'm sure Lovie Smith could have used them. Tough game, though. USF 25-19. Mark, what are your thoughts real quickly on that one?
Yeah, Lovie could have used Mike Singletary in the fourth quarter in this game to help stop the USF offense because Blake Barnett really put on a show throwing the football. Over 400 yards passing coach in this game. He is the real deal. Here's a kid that's traveled all over the place. He was at Alabama, then he was at University of Arizona State. Now he's at USF. He's finally found a home, and he's doing a terrific job at the quarterback position, throwing the ball, spreading the well, putting everyone in position, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, distributing the ball extremely well. They had to have it in the fourth quarter. He got it done in the fourth quarter for USF.
You know, I love Charlie Strong. He coached for me at Notre Dame as well as at South Carolina. He loves Barnett. He told me in the offseason he thought that he was going to have a good, solid football team. To go on the road, to be down at Illinois, and to come back in the fourth quarter, I think they scored 13 points in the fourth quarter, to come back, win the game, that's going to give them an awful lot of confidence. And you have to be positive, though, at Illinois. You know, they could have been 3-0 had they won this game or been able to hang on, but they didn't.
Well, if you understand, USF had 5 sacks on the game. And up next for the Bulls, Charlie Strong and his Bulls, East Carolina, Illinois. Good warm-up game for them as they go to Penn State. Our second game, Boise State at Oklahoma State. Mark, we were talking about this. We thought this was going to be the Stillwater Air Show. First ever meeting between these two teams. Brett Ripien, Taylor Cornelius, they were going to air it out nonstop. And we'd heard a little rumor that Mike Gundy and the Mullet brought in a little defense. That kind of came to fruition. What are your thoughts? This was a great game, and Oklahoma State 44-21. When I say a great game, it was a great game for a team that likes balanced football. Talk to us, Mark.
Justice Hill did a terrific job for Oklahoma State rushing the ball, but the key of this football game is Brett Ripien had a good game for Boise State. The reason why Boise State lost this game, special teams. They had one block punt that was recovered that they took in for a score. They had another block punt that led to another score. If you played solid special teams, and we talked about this early in the season, that could make you or break you. In this game, Oklahoma State did a terrific job of getting to the punter, making things happen. Boise State was terrible. One, in punt protection, but the punter was so slow getting the ball off. I couldn't believe after the first one was blocked, he did it again, and they blocked it again. So right there's 14 points off the bat. Tough for them to recover on the road like that.
I don't believe there's any coach in the country that doesn't understand that 1 out of every 6 plays in a football game, 1 out of every 6 is some form of a kick. Consequently, you have to give special teams a great deal of time and effort in your practice. But last week I said that Oklahoma State had a new defensive coordinator. He's going to a 3-3-5. He's going to be more aggressive. He's going to make things happen, and it certainly showed up. I am not surprised that Oklahoma State won the game when people don't give them near enough credit because they haven't been able to beat Oklahoma on a consistent basis. But for the last 3 years, Mike Gundy, the coach at Oklahoma State, has won 10 games or more the last 3 years.
Mullet power.
There was a theme this week, and gentlemen, I think defense in the Big 12, Oklahoma State, but Brett Ripien, Boise State, great quarterback. But as my high school football coach, Bobby Redmond, Louisville, Kentucky, as he often said, I've never seen a great quarterback throw touchdowns from his butt. So Brett Ripien was sacked 7 times. That was a big factor in this game. So our third game in the Rapid Five, Boston College at Wake Forest. Plan of the game is real simple when you're playing Boston College. Stop A.J. Dillon. So move your safeties up close, and we're gonna box him. We're gonna stop him. Well, you know what? They did a pretty good job. He only scored 1 touchdown, but he ran for 185 yards, and from then on it was just throw over the top. Mark, you saw this game. What do you think? It was a Thursday night. Talk to us.
Great. Yeah, it was a great game to watch. A very competitive game. It went down the wire. I'll tell you one thing about Boston College. They're a sleeper in the ACC. Not only because of A.J. Dillon, but Anthony Brown, their quarterback, threw for 5 touchdowns in this game. They needed him because Dillon did a terrific job running the ball, $185. But when they had to have big plays, he threw the ball vertically extremely well, got the ball down the field of play. When I was watching, it wasn't any dinks and dunk, coach. He went vertically with the football and made some great plays for the Boston College offense.
Looking at that football game, I was impressed with Boston College. I think they played pretty good defense. I was always impressed with Dillon, but I agree with you on Aaron Brown. He was outstanding. However, the one thing that stood out is Wake Forest could not play the ball in the air. They can't play a deep ball. They can't find it. They're either going to get pass interference calls or somebody's going to catch the ball. It's not like Wake Forest was blowing missed assignments in the secondary, like guys were running free. They had people in the same area code as the receiver. They just couldn't find the ball to play it. And Notre Dame, Wimbish or Aon Booker is going to have a great day.
Well, Wake Forest rushed for 298 yards, so I hope people have noted that. And also, freshman quarterback Sam Hartman, he may or may not be starting next week. We'll talk about that later. Next up, BC has 0-3 Purdue. Tough one, you know, those Boilermakers, they're hurting right now. We'll see where that's going to go. But Wake Forest is hosting the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. Now, Washington at Utah. As we said, been a long time since you know, they've played this game in Utah. Both very balanced teams. 155, 172 pass to rush for Utah. 138, 123 for for Washington. 138, 123 for Utah. Miles Gaskin, Washington, 143. That's kind of the, you know what, that may have been the difference maker, but 3 turnovers. Utah gets 3 turnovers. It's kind of a theme this week. Mark, talk to us about Washington, Utah.
Maturity at the quarterback position by Jake Browner. He made plays when he had to make plays. And you talk about Miles Gaskin. He's finally gotten on track running the football, over 140 on the ground in this game. I thought that was key, but I thought Chris Peterson, the head coach, did a great job of managing this game, calling this game. But it was the Washington defense that really stood out in this football game. They wouldn't let Utah score. They scored once in this game. That was it. They shut them down. They didn't give up big plays in this football game, Coach. That was the way that Washington should play. Run the football with Miles Gaskin and play tough defense. That's their calling card.
I think there's no doubt that Coach Peterson is one of the best coaches in the country, and maybe a little bit underrated, but he did a tremendous job at Boise State. He's turned around the Washington program. But in almost all these games we're talking about, who won, who lost, the losing team had on the average 3 turnovers. You can't win the ball game when you turn it over 3 different times, and that's what Utah did. And they also did inability to score in the red zone. Let's give Washington an awful lot of credit.
Well, Coach, Washington hosts Arizona State. Mark, you're friends with Herm Edwards. He's got to have them ready. It's going to be an exciting game. I can't wait to watch that. But, Coach, you may want to lead us into the next game. You sang a certain hymn as a cadence the other day when we announced our last game, Hawaii at Army. Hawaii comes into the long gray line. And you know what? As we said, it was a tale of 2 schools, a tale of 2 cultures, a tale of 2 quarterbacks. One throws, one runs. One goes to class on the beach, one marches to class. One has fans that wear grass skirts and hula hoops, and the other one has the long gray line and a bunch of cadets cheering them on. They go up there to West Point, and you know what? It was a great win, 28-21. Army holds on to win, and it was, we're going to air it out, but oh, by the way, you still have to run the ball in college football, as we know. And Kelvin Hopkins Jr. said, I can throw too. 6 for 10, 162 yards to go along with 110 rushing yards. Army pulled it out. Mark, talk about this.
Yeah, you mentioned it right there. Kelvin Hopkins Jr. did a terrific job in this football game. Everybody knows Army can run the football, but they don't throw the ball consistently, particularly down the field. And you mentioned he had 162 yards passing. I thought that was key in this football game. And for Hawaii, I thought for them, the 12 o'clock kickoff was 6 a.m. Hawaii time. I thought it finally caught up to them, but this was still a close game going down to the wire, Coach.
Yeah, but here, I watched the game. Opening kickoff, Hawaii takes it, marches right down the field, hardly like it's playing touch tackle, goes up 7-0. You think, well, they're going to do it every time. We do not give Army enough credit. They are a very, very solid, fundamental defensive football team. They put good pressure on the passer. They play zone coverage. They can't play man-to-man because they don't have the speed to stay with it. They break on the ball. They tackle well, and they're going to wear you down. The fact that it was up there in Mitchie Stadium with all your core cadets there watching, you're going to play very, very well. So I'm not surprised Army. Well, as a matter of fact, Mark, I'm surprised you didn't pick Army.
I usually go with the academies, but this time I just thought with the firepower, Cole McDonald throwing the football, the #1 passer in the country, I thought he'd be throwing the ball all over the place. He did have a big game, but it just wasn't good enough for Hawaii.
Had you been in the military like the colonel and I, you would have picked Army.
Hey, well, I will tell you, Coach Redmond's philosophy goes with Cole McDonald, too. Yeah, he can throw it. but 3 times he was on his butt, and that didn't help. And in big-time college football, you still got to rush, and Hawaii couldn't get that done, rushing for 42 yards. Well, gentlemen, that wraps up our Rapid 5. And what I want to talk about is the playoffs. Who do we have that when we started on week 1, we picked some playoffs teams? And who's going to be in the college football playoff, who's going to be in the national championship game, and who's going to hoist that trophy on January 7th in Santa Clara, California. Mark, you had Alabama, Clemson, another team in Washington, and now you have Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Washington. So you have a substitute, so that's okay. Coach, Georgia, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Wisconsin. Wisconsin lost to BYU, 24-21. So we're going to ask you, are you going to stay with the cards you're dealt, or do you want to discard and get a new one?
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to bail out while I still got some money in the bank. I was very disappointed in the ability to run the football by Wisconsin. I have to replace them. I still like the other 3. I like Georgia, I like Clemson, I like Notre Dame. I couldn't decide between Oklahoma and Ohio State. I'm going with Ohio State, and here's why. I worry about Oklahoma's defense. For example, against Iowa State, they gave up 27 points, 400-plus yards. When Iowa State played Iowa, they gave up 3 points and 188 yards to Iowa State. So that tells me Oklahoma still has tremendous problems on defenses. Remember, last year in the playoff, they lost to Georgia, what, 52-50, something along that line. So I'm going to go with Ohio State in there instead of Wisconsin.
Be careful, Coach. Be careful, because you had Wisconsin from the Big Ten. I had Michigan State from the Big Ten. They both lost early in the season. I'm not going with another Big Ten school. You go ahead and go with Ohio State.
Well, but say the difference, Mark, is I want to win and you don't. You just want to be impressive on TV. I want to win.
I got Alabama. That's all I'm going to say. Roll Tide.
I got Georgia.
All right, gentlemen. So we've got last week, got our winners. We're going to go to the College Football Show contest for week 4. We're into week 4. It's something to think about. Let's see who's playing, who's not playing, who goes into a game, who doesn't go into a game this week. Because as we talk about, the NCAA instituted a new redshirt rule. If you play in up to only 4 games, doesn't matter if it's the first 4 games or a total of 4 games throughout the year, that could be considered a redshirt year. I'd be real interested. We'll talk about this later on, but how this plays out this week. So, big games, 5 games this week. Texas A&M at Alabama, Stanford at Oregon, Georgia at Missouri, Tulane at Ohio State, and Notre Dame is going down to Winston-Salem to play Wake Forest. So I want to start us off. You could almost call this the Junction Boys Bowl. You've got number 22, Texas A&M, at number 1, Alabama. And what you have here, you've got 2 of the 6 coaches that were born in West Virginia that have won a national championship are coaching in this game. So I'm going to tell you, that's a lot of pressure, because if you look at Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban. Jimbo Fisher falls under the student level with Nick Saban, the former offensive coordinator at LSU. What's Nick Saban's record against his former assistants? 12-0. So there you have it with that lead in. Mark, talk to us. A&M, Alabama. Please tell me it's close.
It's going to be 13-0 after this game. I don't care if Alabama plays on the road. I don't care if they play at home. I've got the score in this game 44-14. Kellen Mond will put a couple of touchdowns on the board because Texas A&M will, and Jimbo Fisher will have his team ready to play. But Alabama is just a juggernaut on offense, using both quarterbacks, Tua and Jalen Hurts, running the football with the Harris kids. Not only that, but throwing. They found Jerry Jeudy, the wide receiver that can come up with big plays vertically down the field to play. They are just steamrolling opponents, and I don't think it's going to stop in this football game. I think they're going to outscore by 30.
It's going to be 31-27 Alabama in a cliffhanger. And let me tell you why, Mark. This is what you say. You watch games and you observe. Why did somebody win? You know, Clemson had the best defensive line in the country. Clemson's defense, and with their great coordinator, is on the same parallel as Alabama. I tell you, Texas A&M did a tremendous job. protecting the passer, running the football. And Kevin Mond is the quarterback. His ability to run, the ability to throw. They have good receivers. They have good speed. But the other thing, do not underestimate Texas A&M's defensive coordinator, Elko. He was at Notre Dame. I thought he did a great job against Clemson. They outplayed Clemson. Clemson was #2 in the country. If this game was at A&M, I would pick A&M to upset them.
Well, gentlemen, this is the 11th meeting. Bama leads 8-2. And for those of you who are at home that are wondering, who are those 6 coaches? Well, there's Phil Yost at Michigan, and that was over 100 years ago. There's Ben Schwartzwalder, 1959 Syracuse coach, won a national championship. He's from West Virginia. John McKay, USC. He won a few national championships. And then there's some fella from Follinsby, West Virginia, named Lou Holtz, who led Notre Dame to the 1988 national championship. And then you have Nick Saban with a whole bunch, and Jimbo Fisher, the one at Florida State. But call it the Junction Boys Bowl because both teams were coached by one, Paul Bear Bryant. That leads to our next game. #2 Stanford at #20 Oregon. History of this game, 82nd meeting. 1900 was the first time. Stanford leads 48-32, and there's one tie. Bryce Love's going to be back, okay? That's a big thing. That's football. We know their defense is solid. Here's what I want to know, and you tell me. Oregon really hasn't played anybody. Okay, they got a big old strong quarterback. I mean, Mario Cristobal's got this offense going, but Stanford is like a bunch of grown men coming into that school. Talk to me, Mark. What do you think?
It's going to be a close game. It's a Big 12 North matchup, and it's going to be right down to the wire. Bryce Love is coming back, but how long can he last in this game? Can he stay healthy throughout the game? I think Jim Leavitt, the defensive coordinator for Oregon, is going to have a great game plan against them after watching what San Diego State did. But I'll tell you one thing. You can look at Justin Herbert, the quarterback, 6'6", 235 pounds. He's a beast, coach, at the quarterback position, and he right now is ranked as the #1 quarterback for next year's NFL draft. He can spin the magic bean all the way across the field, left to right, down the middle, deep, short. He's got a great touch on the ball, great focus in this game. I think playing at Autzen Stadium is going to be a big help for Oregon. I think the Ducks will win this game, a close one, 24-21 at home.
Well, I disagree with you, but I do agree with you about Oregon. I think there's a very good football team. They were 6-6 last year, and Stanford did beat them 49-7. Now, that was in Palo Alto last year. I think that Brooks James, the running back for Oregon, is very, very solid. But this is a different Stanford team, and I've seen, Mark, they're always very good on defense, but their wide receivers now are catching the ball downfield. They're getting open. They used to be predominantly a play control, passing action, using the tight ends. Now they're using the wide receivers, but I think that Stanford prevails 26-24, as I mentioned.
Well, Coach, I still think with Justin Herbert, 56% pass completion percentage goes back to the Bobby Redmond principle. I've never seen a big, huge quarterback throw from his butt. And who's he played against? San Jose, Portland State, and Bowling Green. Stanford's some big boy defense.
I used to tell the players that a little bit different. You don't throw well from a supine position, which means on your back.
That, as Coach said in his way. Gentlemen, #2, Georgia at Missouri. This goes back to a potential #1 NFL draft pick quarterback. You've heard Drew Lock. You keep hearing about it. Not a lot of people have seen him. He's also 6'4", 6'5", 200-plus pounds, and this is the 8th meeting between these two, and it started in the 1960 Orange Bowl. Georgia leads the series, though, 6-1. And more importantly, this is probably the only other team other than Georgia to win the SEC East in the last couple of years. So, Mark, talk to us about what's going to go down, Georgia at Missouri in Columbia.
I think Drew Lock's going to have a difficult time throwing the football in this game. I don't think his protection's going to hold up. Missouri's going to be challenged for the first time, and Georgia's going to put it on him because Kirby Smart's defense is fast and physical. They're good after the quarterback. And I like Georgia's offense, not only because of Jake Fromm, but I like their offense because they run the ball with multiple backs. They're 3 and 4 deep at the running back position. They continue to pound you. And one thing that hasn't been mentioned is how good Georgia's offensive line is. 1, they protect the quarterback. 2, they do an outstanding job of run blocking and getting to the second level. I think Georgia in a beat down in this game, Coach, 36-13.
I look for it to be 42-20 in favor of Georgia. But the fact of Missouri, and do not underestimate Drew Lock, and let's give credit to the Missouri coach. Last year, I think at one time, Mark, they were something like 1-5. Everybody's talking about is he going to be able to last on his job. Drew Lock came on. Along with Larry Roundtree, they're good running back. They're playing better defense, but they're not in Georgia's class. Georgia is just very, very talented, on a mission, plays excellent defense. And, you know, anytime a defense coordinator goes from Nick Saban to become head coach in another school, they play good defense. Look at how well Tennessee's playing on defense. Look at how well South Carolina under Muschamp's playing. And then, of course, at Georgia under Kirby Smart. So I think Georgia, and I've said this before, I think they are my pick to win the SEC. It's going to be them and Alabama. They're both going to be undefeated in the championship game.
Well, gentlemen, we're going to see how Drew Lock's going to be against Georgia. Tell you what, he performs well against those guys. Well, maybe he moves up in that NFL draft list next year. But our next game is the Tulane Green Wave are going to Columbus. It's the first ever meeting between these two teams. It's the first football game back for Coach Urban Meyer after a 3-game suspension. He's going to be on the sidelines. So what you have to ask, they played a pretty complete game against TCU. Offense scored, defense scored, special teams. Everybody scored. They were up. Now, is this a tighter game, or is this are they going to be loosey-goosey because we're playing Tulane and Daddy's home? How's that going to go, Mark? And more importantly, what's this going to lead them up to? Because if you look what they have the week after, they're going to Happy Valley. So talk to us, Mark. What do you think?
Nick Bosa's going to sit this game out because of their groin injury, so their defense has got to be down one of the best players in the country. If you look at Ohio State, they really haven't played that well defensively against the run. If Tulane looks at the game tape against Oregon State and against TCU last week, they're going to come up with a game plan. They should run the football. And the reason why, they can keep the ball away from Ohio State, keep it out of their hands from their explosive offense, Haskins and company throwing the football and running the football. So Ohio State doesn't run it up, but it's not going to matter in this football game. Ohio State's still going to get double nickels, Coach. I got Ohio State 55, Tulane 17.
Well, I think that Tulane started out the year by losing to Wake Forest in overtime. That was very, very impressive. They haven't done an awful lot yet. They're 109th in total defense. They just don't play good enough defense. They aren't as athletic. And Ohio State will come back. They will be a little bit of a letdown. They're getting ready to go into the Big Ten. Remember, the following week they have Penn State and how much difficulty they've had with Penn State the last couple of years. So I think they would just be very, very solemn on Saturday. They'll find a way to win 56-10. And once again, I think Dobbins and Weber is the best 1-2 running back combination. And what Haskins is doing at quarterback, going into TCU, Mark, he was completing over 70% of his passes. I want to tell you, when I was in school, if I got 70, my parents celebrated. What a great thing, even though it was a D.
Well, Coach, I will tell you what's going to be interesting. I want to see if Tate Martell gets on the field and what happens there. He's a redshirt freshman. If you've seen him, I think he's been to transferred a couple high schools, came from Las Vegas, eventually to Ohio State. He's tatted up and he's got some moxie. He can move around. He can do some things that Haskins can't. But the question is he going to stick around there for 3 more years, or is maybe he going to shop around after this season? We'll see. But that leads us to our next game. Notre Dame is headed to Wake Forest. 4th meeting between these teams. Notre Dame has, depending on where you read it, some say it's a 5-0 advantage on the Notre Dame website. The other book said it's a 4-0 advantage because the 2012 victory was vacated. I don't know about that one. But this will be the first road game of the year for the Notre Dame fans. And I think that's going to be an advantage. Because, Coach, correct me if I'm wrong, Notre Dame doesn't travel well because they just appear. They're already everywhere. But more importantly, this is a 12 o'clock kickoff. And this is the first Notre Dame game of the season at a stadium that serves beer. They don't serve beer at Notre Dame, but they do at the Baptist School down in Winston-Salem. So I think things could get rocking and rolling. You've got a great rushing attack at Wake Forest and maybe some home field advantage on a Saturday. Mark, talk to us.
Sam Hartman, the quarterback's done a terrific job throwing the ball. He's got to protect the ball a little bit better. 5 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But they are a balanced football team, Coach. They average 264 yards on the ground, 278 yards in the air. They can do it either way. They can throw it. They can run it. They're consistent at doing both of those things, Coach. They're playing at home, and they get the extra rest because they played Boston College on that Thursday night. So they're going to be well prepared for Notre Dame coming into their stadium. And guess what, Coach? Notre Dame hasn't been scoring a lot of points lately. They have a tough time putting the ball in the end zone. This is a team that can score because they scored against Boston College fairly easily. They're going to score against your Notre Dame defense. I was going to go Notre Dame this game just because I thought the Irish could gut it out. They could find a way to win under Brian Kelly. But you know what? I'm changing my mind. I'm going Wake Forest 27, Notre Dame 24.
Oh, Mark, I tell you, I have so much respect for you, but each week you pick against Notre Dame, it goes down. And, Kevin, I don't care whether they sell beer or not, as long as our players aren't drinking it in the locker room. But I look at this, and I don't know which Wake Forest team will show up. Number one, they've gone with the freshman Steve Hartman because their original quarterback, who they had great hopes for, Kendall Hinton, was suspended the first 3 weeks of the season. Is he going to start, or are they going to stay with the freshman Hartman, who does not protect the football well enough? He's going to be a great quarterback in the future. He's just not ready right now. He throws the ball into too much traffic. I think that Notre Dame is a very solid football team. Going on the road, and the thing you forget, Mark, Notre Dame plays Wake Forest every year. Even though they play 5 ACC teams, I think Wake Forest appears there each. They know Wake Forest, and Notre Dame will play well on the road. Sometimes when you don't play well like they have at the last 2 games at home, Notre Dame didn't play particularly well against Ball State, didn't play particularly well against Vanderbilt, but found a way to win. When you're not playing well, you want to go on the road because you get away from everything else and you become closer and band together. You don't have all the fans, all the parents coming in wanting to visit with. You go. Notre Dame wins this game 34-15.
I thought you said Notre Dame was a special place to play. It was a great stadium, a great environment. You've got a big advantage playing at Notre Dame in South Bend. Now you're telling me it's better to go on the road if you're Notre Dame?
Let me tell you, Mark, as a coach, whatever you're doing, you got to turn it out to be to your advantage. You're going to be down there. Wake Forest fans are going to be full. That is something Wake Forest not used to. Wow, a full stadium. Why? Because Notre Dame. They came here to watch us. They came to watch Notre Dame. If they wanted to watch Wake Forest, they would have come last week when the stadium was empty. Remember, they people want to see Notre Dame. You have an obligation to put on a show. Maybe I will raise that up to 40-15. Now we'll leave it at 34.
I'm sorry, did you say something? I was drinking a little bit of water here. I wasn't focused.
You've been underwater for a long time, Mark.
Well, gentlemen, maybe we can meet in Winston-Salem. But here's what's interesting. As we said, Wake Forest quarterback Kendall Hinton was suspended for 3 games down there at Wake Forest Footloose Baptist U. We're going to see how that goes. But if he plays, he'll learn his lesson. He won't go dancing anymore. So, gentlemen, what I want to do is get to our Rapid 5. And our Rapid 5 this week, some pretty good games. And you know what? Almost every single one of them is undefeated, except 2. TCU at Texas, we're starting out. 89th meeting. Goes back to 1897. Texas holds a 62-25-1 advantage. But TCU has 4 straight. TCU just got done playing Ohio State. Well, I think we all agree. They measured up pretty well. Texas, on the other hand, they took it, to USC. Is USC underachieving, or is USC's quarterback underage, and maybe that's a big reason? I don't know. But Texas is up. TCU, though they lost, they're kind of up too. Exciting game going on right here. Mark, TCU at Texas, Saturday.
I like TCU in this game. They've got Texas's number. Texas is a 500 team since 2010. Sean Robinson, the quarterback, does a terrific job. Darius Anderson came off a big game against Ohio State, 12 for 154. Do you know on the season, this running back is averaging 8.9 yards per carry. They'll run the ball down their throat. They'll be more solid on special teams. I don't think Texas plays well in this. I still think Tom Herman's overrated in this. I'm going with TCU, 37-20 over Texas.
I think that Herman's starting to turn that program around. They look very, very impressive against Southern Cal. But once again, you can't tell. We can't tell about a football team because Stanford looked so great against Southern Cal. We think, wow, Stanford's really good. But Southern Cal is absolutely horrible. However, the one thing that I'm afraid about with TCU, Ohio State beat you last week. Don't let them beat you this week also. By that, I'm saying you're worried about last week's game, you're moaning about it, instead of saying, okay, that's over, forget it. Now we're into the conference's important game. I think Gary Patterson will have them ready. I look for TCU 45-28.
45-28, TCU, big game in our next game. Mississippi State going to Commonwealth Stadium in Kentucky, and 46th meeting between these two since 1914. Mississippi State has a slight edge, 23-22. So maybe the Cats can tie it up. Nick Fitzgerald, Kylan Hill are coming in. And is it the same team that they're going to meet that was down there beating up on the Gators and toe-to-toe and finding ways to win? Or is it going to be, you know, the way Mississippi State has done to quite a few other SEC teams in the last couple of years? Mark, your thoughts?
Like Mississippi State in this game, and I'll tell you why. Not only Nick Fitzgerald throwing the ball, but also his legs running the ball will open up the defense against Kentucky. Not only that, Kylan Hill is averaging 9.2 yards per tote. And that's in the SEC, Coach. I know it's early, they're playing non-conference opponents, but they get it done up front offensively. They know how to score points. Kentucky's had a really good year so far, but this is where the rubber meets the road. They're facing an opponent that's not Florida. This is a real opponent that can run it, that can throw it, and that's solid on defense and special teams. Mississippi State wins this game 34-23.
Well, Kentucky is a very, very lovely stadium, probably the cleanest stadium I've ever been in. The fans are going to be excited because they're 3-0. They beat Florida quite decisively. This is a very, very good, solid Kentucky team. This is not the type of Kentucky team we're used to seeing. However, I think Mississippi State is one of the 3 best teams, or maybe one of the 4 best teams in the entire SEC. I look for them to beat Kentucky 31-17.
Well, Coach Rex Chapman was calling back in, but we're going to put him on. We're not going to answer right now. We might get to him later. Third game, Arizona State at number 10, Washington. We talked about this. Rebound game for Arizona State. Go to San Diego State. You know, San Diego State said, hey, we're going to run the ball. We ran, and that was a tough loss after that high against Michigan State for the Sun Devils and Herm Edwards. So, 37th meeting between these two teams. Arizona State, believe it or not, has a 20-16 advantage, and they won last year in Tempe. Mark, you live out there. Talk to us.
I'll tell you what, Arizona State has to turn it around in a hurry. They've got to play better on the road. Obviously, they've only had 1 game on the road, and they lost that to San Diego State last week. Manny Wilkins, at quarterback, has done a terrific job. He threw for over 340 yards last week. He's got to be throwing the ball vertically because they've got great wide receivers that can get it done. But I don't think they're going to have enough to stop Myles Gaskin in the running game. After seeing what San Diego State did last week, I'm sure Chris Peterson's going to look at his team and say, look, we're a better football team. We're playing at home. We just won a road game against Utah. We're going to get it done. We have 2 good quarterbacks on the field. Jake Browning's the other quarterback for Washington, but Washington's got that 1-2 punch at running back with Myles Gaskin. I think they get it done offensively. I like Washington at home 31-17 over the Sun Devils.
I think that Arizona State will bounce back. I think the way they played against Michigan State was tremendous. But then again, we don't know how good Michigan State is yet until we get into conference play. We're going to find all this out. You can't evaluate football teams the first 3 weeks of the season. I've said that over and over. But I do believe in Washington's defense. I think Jake Browning is an excellent quarterback. But I would not put him in a great classification until he wins the big game or performs exceptionally well there. But I love Peterson. I love the defense. I love the area up at Washington. I look for Washington to win 27-21.
Well, gentlemen, I think what we're going to do is exciting Pac-12 football is underway. Now, formerly number 6, but now number 18, Wisconsin, is going out to Kinnick Stadium in Iowa and taking on the Hawkeyes. As I said earlier, is that the Badgers going out, or is that an angry, honey badger going out there now after that loss to the Cougars at BYU? So, 92nd meeting between these teams goes back to 1894. Mark, I know what you're about to say there, but Wisconsin leads this 46-43-2. Kirk Ferentz, he's been coaching almost as many years as Coach Holtz. I mean, y'all probably coached together. He's the longest-serving coach, I think, in college football, other than Bill Snyder, who had that sabbatical he went on. But big game, and Wisconsin at Iowa. What do you think, Mark?
Well, it's going to be tough to play at Iowa because it always is. They've got that pink locker room that they painted pink years ago, Coach. It kind of lulls guys to sleep. Not only that, if you look at the way that Wisconsin played last week, Iowa has the #2 rush defense in the nation at 42 yards a game. Jonathan Taylor's averaging 171 yards per game. That's where the game's going to be won or lost. Whoever turns the football over more in this game will lose this football game, but I still think it's going to be a close game, and Iowa's defense is going to get it done because they saw what BYU was able to do against Jonathan Taylor last week. They're going to come up with a formula to stop him or slow him down because they are a great running defense. Kirk Ferentz and his team gets it done at home 26-20.
I got my master's degree from Iowa. I started my coaching career at Iowa as a GA under FORREST, and we finished second in the country. So I think the Iowa Hawkeye fans are great. And Coach Ferentz's team, they're not flashy, but you're right, Mark. They play great defense. Under Coach Parker, the defense coordinator, they play the run very, very well. And let's remember, a year ago, they were like 11-0, but they're not real fancy. I love their quarterback. They're doing well. But I just believe Wisconsin is going to bounce back. There's no way in this world a team that's used to winning gets embarrassed like that, losing home first time in like 50-some games, that they aren't going to bounce back in a conference game. I look for Wisconsin to beat Iowa 31-17.
Well, 31-17, there you had it. And regardless of who wins or loses, probably one of the greatest new traditions in college football is a Kinnick Stadium wave that at the end of the first quarter, the team, the fans, both teams wave to the kids at the Children's Hospital that's overlooking that stadium. And I'm going to tell you, give me my choice between a turnover chain, a robe, and a bucket, or waving at some kids that are all in. You know what? Nothing is better than that.
Kevin, as part of the graduate assistantship, I taught physical education to the physically handicapped at Iowa Children's Hospital right there. People with spinal bifida, cerebral palsy, tremendous experience.
Well, no better calling, as we know, Coach. But that leaves us to our fifth game of the Rapid Five. And this is a family affair close to home. Louisiana Tech Bulldogs are headed to Baton Rouge Saturday night in Death Valley. It's a 20th meeting since 1901. LSU is 18-1, and they last lost to the Bulldogs in 1904. But I don't think, Terry Bradshaw, Phil Robertson, whoever are going to be out there, but there might be a coaching advantage here. Coach Holtz, let you lead us off with this one. What do you think about Louisiana Tech Bulldogs at LSU? You may have some inside scoop.
I am looking for Louisiana Tech to beat LSU, #6 in the country, in Baton Rouge, Saturday night, 28-27. You're going to say, wow, that's an upset. That's not an upset. Upset is what my wife would be if I picked against her son, so I have no other option. But let's remember this also. Skip Holtz down at Louisiana Tech. The Bulldogs have won 4 straight bowl games with 4 different quarterbacks. They have a very, very solid receiving core. I think they're a good football team. They're anxious to go down there, but I hope that they come out there healthy because next week they have a big game in the conference at North Texas. So I think Louisiana Tech 28-27.
Wow. Coach, I'll tell you what, Skip's is a heck of a coach. He's done a terrific job down there at Louisiana Tech. And look at LSU. They had a big game against Miami. They had the big game at Auburn last week. But right now they're looking at Louisiana Tech. They're sneaking around. They're 2-0. They're averaging 42 points a game. They're really not giving them the respect that they do. And you know about Louisiana Tech? No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to be an upset. They're going to get steamrolled. Joe Burrow's only completed 46% of his passes. It doesn't matter. Nick Brissett's got to run the ball for over 100 yards. They're going to win this game handily. And guess what? It's going to be won not only on offense and defense, but special teams is what's going to get Skip in this game at Louisiana Tech. LSU wins it 41-21, but congratulations, Skip. I'm happy you're winning down there at Louisiana Tech.
Hey, Mark, if you come to Orlando, you make sure you have hotel reservations because you aren't staying at my house any longer. The wife doesn't want you.
Well, gentlemen, there you have it. And that's our Rapid Five. Wasn't real rapid, but that's okay because Jack Wistancy is averaging 105 yards for Louisiana Tech, and you never know. As we often hear, history doesn't repeat itself, but it whispers. You know what? It might whisper back to 1904. You just never know. We have our College Football Show contest. We have our Rapid Five contest. What I want to talk about is we have some winners from last week. And Coach Mark, if we talk about our winners, got a double winner for the first time. So if you've got a sheet in front of you, Coach, why don't you look down and read us about the College Football Show winners for Week 3, please.
I am pleased to announce that once again the women are on top. Susan Sugarbaker gets a $250 Amazon gift card. Number 2 is Oliver Longoria. He gets a $100 Amazon gift card. And number 3 is Troy McGuckin. I hope I pronounced that right. You get a $100 Amazon gift card, and I get a nasty letter if I mispronounced any of those names.
Well, number 1 for me, Paul Berry. He gets a $250 Amazon gift card. Number 2, Aaron Crookston. He gets a $100 Amazon gift card. And number 3, Oliver Longoria, Coach, a double winner. He gets a $100 Amazon gift card.
Well, gentlemen, I'll get you Oliver Longoria's phone number. He can help you out before next week's picks, or I'll auction off that point of contact. So that leads us to our attaboys. We call it our attaboy, and it is a pat on the back to a deserving young man, football player, that had a great week. So, Coach, I'm going to start with you first. What are your 2 attaboys for Week 4?
My first attaboy goes to Anthony Brown, the quarterback from Boston College. He threw 16 out of 28 last year for 304 yards against Wake Forest, as well as 5 touchdowns. But also, you have to also include honorable mention A.J. Dillon, the running back, who rushed for 185 yards. So I think that Boston College is for real, and those 2 outstanding players are true sophomores. When Boston College turned their season around last year was when they started going with Dillon and Aaron Brown and Anthony Brown. And people say, well, Anthony Brown can't throw. Good Lord knows he was impressive. My second one, for the second time, I didn't think this had ever happened, goes to Cole Tracy, the LSU place kicker. Kicked a 41-yard field goal against Auburn to win the game. That's twice he's done it. Now, it's not just he's been a place kicker, ladies and gentlemen. Here's what I want you to understand. Last year, he was kicking for Assumption in Massachusetts in front of 1,500 people. He was 17 out of 19 last year. Transferred. Not only did he kick this one, he kicked 2 other ones during the course of the football game. And last year, LSU's kicking game was so bad, he has been a godsend.
Coach, he was only on the field for 5 plays.
Boy, isn't LSU glad he was? And doesn't Auburn wish that he hadn't showed up? Because Auburn would have won this game without him.
Well, I want to go to homecoming and see Cole Tracy as the homecoming king, the big man on campus down there. Well, gentlemen, we're about to wrap up Week 4.
Got my attaboys.
Oh, what about my attaboys? I don't know if he... I want to hear yours, Mark. Which offensive lineman?
Not an offensive lineman, but here's an attaboy for you. Army quarterback Kelvin Hopkins. The junior did a terrific job. He was 6 of 10 for 162 yards, and Army passing, and rushed for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns in their 28-21 win against Hawaii. My second one not only goes to a player or a coach, it goes to an entire football team. And it goes to Kansas. They're 2-1, Coach, for the first time since 2014. How about that? Not only that, they hung up 55 points on a Big Ten team, Rutgers, and won 55-21. So Kansas gets my second attaboy, and head coach David Beatty, terrific job. They're a team that's going to be much better this year. I expect them to get 5 or 6 wins this year. They may have a shot at the bowl.
Oh, I'm not sure of that, but boy, what a bad day it was for the Big Ten, Mark. You look at Maryland getting beat. You look at Rutgers getting smashed. Northwestern losing. I mean, time after time. Huge upsets. Not against real great football teams either.
Well, Mark, you bring up Kansas. Dave Beatty, coach, you've often talked about culture, and we've talked about that before. What's it take to turn a team around, and maybe he's bringing that out there to the Jayhawks. I want to ask you, gentlemen, as we wrap this up, because it's been an exciting show once again, that Week 4, we're coming up. A lot of things going on. What are you looking forward to most this week? And, Mark, I'll start with you.
Well, Coach kind of mentioned it. I'm looking for the Big Ten to see if they can bounce back, being basically humiliated last week. 7 teams in the Big Ten went down to non-conference opponents. How about this? Kansas, Temple, Akron, Troy, South Florida, BYU, and Missouri all beat Big Ten teams. supposedly the second, or some people said it was the best conference in the country going into this season. Not even close. Embarrassment.
I'm looking to see who really is going to stand up. As I mentioned before, is Virginia Tech that good, or is Florida State that bad? Is Syracuse that good? You look at Arkansas, and what a disappointing it is. Is that for real? I think A&M, you know, they played very, very well. Is that going to last? You just look at it over and over. But it's not just now. Right now, Mark, there's some people are saying, boy, we have a chance to win this conference championship. We have a chance to win it all. We have a chance to be one of the Final Four. But there are a lot of teams right now, Mark, who are saying, okay, how do we get to 6 wins? Can we get to a bowl? There are some teams that are just trying to salvage their season right now. Florida State and Arkansas are both in that category.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I'm looking forward to week 4 of college football because of what college football does for so many. And I want to bring up 2 young men that are playing college football, but I also want to tell you how they got there. There's an organization called the Athletes of Valor. It was started by veterans, and what it does is it takes active duty service members and allows them to go out, compete, perform, and work at a combine. And they run the 40, do the bench, get on film, get some stats, but more importantly, it allows these now 21-year-old, more mature, a lot stronger veterans. It allows them to establish a recruiting profile, and then maybe once their initial enlistment is up, once their commission's over, they go out and get on a college football team. And what's exciting about that is I often hear about BYU and we talk about maybe sometimes there's an advantage to these more mature football players. These guys go on an LDS mission. Well, you know what? These Athletes of Valor players go on a different kind of mission before playing college football, but all end up in the same place. And Alex Vendura from Bloomsburg University in Pennsylvania, you know, he's a alumni of Athletes of Valor. Former Marine, was an infantryman, but he was also a Marine body bearer. And if you've ever seen the Marine Corps body bearers at Marine Barracks 8th and I, it is unbelievable what they do. And Khalif Gamble, Becker College is a D3 college of Massachusetts. Khalif Gamble, former soldier in the United States Army like our own Coach Holtz. He's a defensive back, and he's playing at Becker College, but that all came through Athletes of Valor. So any chance we have to look at and recognize our veterans, we're going to do that. But more importantly, any chance we have to enjoy college football, we're going to do that too. Enjoy it well. Go to thecrowdsign.com. Compete in our free contest. Look at thecrowdsign.com videos, and you know what? We're adding a couple more touches to that. We got a podcast now. Download the podcast. If you go to the mobile app, you've got blogs, you've got videos, you've got all the little snippets, all to entertain, all to inform, and to keep you with us as we enjoy college football. So, gentlemen, with that said, have a great week. I'm excited. We're going to talk here right after kickoff. Thank you.
From the 30, Johnson out of the shotgun. Dropping back, pressure on, throwing over the middle. Has Williams. 10, 5, touchdown!